how's it going? My name is Lynn and welcome to my channel. Today I am going to make a crossover pointy card. I think it goes by different names, but that's the one of the common ones that I found. And if you search for diamond point card, you might find some similar examples as well. Definitely not a design that I came up with myself. I've seen other examples of this for sure. I'm starting with a 6x6 card base, and what I've done is marked at the bottom of my card the halfway point. So at the 3-inch mark, I've just given myself a little pencil mark. And so I've seen examples of this mostly with square ratio cards, but I have seen a couple of examples of probably, I think, 5x7. I didn't actually watch the full video. I just saw the cover of the video. But I think you'll find examples in both rectangle and square format cards. But the principle is going to be the same. At the bottom of your top folding card, you want to identify the center point. Give yourself a little tick mark, and then what you're going to do is trim off the 2 bottom corners, and you'll be trimming triangles off. So you want to line up the top corner of your card on one end of your score or cutting track, and then you want to line up the other end with your pencil mark. So here I'll draw a line so that you can see. This line goes from the pencil mark, which was at the center point at the bottom of our card, to one of the corners at the top of our card. And that's going to give you a perfect, right angle, right triangle, which you'll want to keep because we'll use that to continue to decorate our card. And that's what's going to give us, the other name I've heard is a triple point card. I do also want to mention that I will be making a lot of different elements to go onto this card, and so I'm going to timestamp this video so that just if you are interested in watching how to make all of the different elements, you can decide to do that. If you want to skip some of them, you can do that. If you're already familiar with all of these and you just want to see me put together the card, then you want to just fast forward to the bookmark that's titled Assembly. And that's where all of my elements have already been put together and I just put the card together. Okay, so today's card I'll be using the Graphic 45 Steampunk and Spells. This is the 8x8 version of the Deluxe Collector's Edition, which comes in a 12x12. And if you had caught my Graphic 45 Design Team haul, I did mention that I was planning on using this for a DIY, this paper pad for a DIY scrapbook, and I think I still have plenty left over, so I can still do that. I didn't actually end up using too many sheets of paper out of this. But what I'll start by doing is cutting my mats and layers. Now this is a pearlescent card from Tonic Studios. I didn't want any of the white showing, so I started with a 6x6 inch or square sheet, and then I did the exact same thing as I'll do here. Just give myself a pencil mark at the bottom, line the top corner up with the other end of my cutting track, and then slice off that triangle. For the pattern paper that I'm layering on top of this, I did want a bit of that border showing. And so I just cut down my square piece to be smaller than 6x6. And you can choose that size just depending on how much of a margin you want to show. Okay, so now for the rosette. I decided that I wanted roughly about a 3-inch diameter rosette. So I'm slicing another pattern paper to 1 5/8 inch strips. This is actually going to end up giving me slightly larger than a 3-inch diameter. Basically, whatever diameter rosette you want strips that are going to be about half of that. So the radius of your rosette is the width of the strip that you want to cut. And I'm scoring this strip here at every 3/8 of an inch. The width that you score this at, you want it to be even all the way through, so that you can do what I'm doing here is this like accordion fan fold, just back and forth, alternating between mountain and valley fold. And that width, the distance that you score at, that determines how thick of a rosette in terms of like the distance between the bottom and the top as it sits on your card. So it's sort of the depth, I suppose, of your rosette. And I cut actually 2, maybe 2.5 strips, and that really will just determine how close together or how far apart that zigzag is of your rosette. So if you had 4 strips, you're going to get a very tight zigzag. If you have too few, you might not actually have enough paper to do a full circle, or you'll just end up with a very flat kind of zigzag. So that's how, you can kind of play by ear, but that's how each of those dimensions impacts the final look of your rosette. And what I like to do is I just like to punch, or you can die cut out larger circles and hot glue those solid circles to the center, and that will keep your rosette together. So since I only have the 8x8 paper pad and not the full DCE, I don't have the stickers or ephemera, so I just fussy cut some of the images out of some of the pattern papers. And if you are like me and you're not super great at fussy cutting, a dark ink pad is going to be your best friend, because if you just ink those edges, first off, you take away the white core of the paper. So that's a little bit less distracting if it's a design that is a little bit more kind of grungy and vintagey. But also, if you don't have, that sort of perfect equal border outside of the image where you've cut, inking it with a dark ink also hides all of that. So it's really, really fantastic. And especially for something like this where it's a steampunk design, I think having that sort of aged, vintagey look along around the borders actually goes really well with the look of the papers and design overall. So I'm gonna ink all of my fussy cut images, and I did forget though to ink up the rosette, and after this you'll see some paper straws that I make, and I forgot to ink that up as well. So if you're gonna do any inking, I would definitely recommend inking everything up so that it's all nice and consistent. Okay, so then with paper straws, this is just 4 inches tall, and the width doesn't matter because I actually cut this out of a bit of scrap. And really what you're looking for, or at least what I was looking for when I chose the papers for my rosette and for this, is I was just looking for the color that I wanted, because the way we're going to treat these elements, you're not going to really be able to see any sort of pattern. And all I've done was just roll this. I've used my bone folder to kind of break down those paper fibers. I rolled it between the palms of my hands to break down the paper fibers, get it nice and soft so that I can get as tight of a roll as possible. And I used a little bit of liquid adhesive along the way just to kind of tack that down, keep it nice and tight so that it doesn't loosen up on me as I continue to roll it. And then, as you saw, I just, when it was all done, rolled it between the palms of my hands again, and gave it that extra time to kind of grab hold and for that liquid adhesive to actually grab. So now time to just put everything together now that all of my elements are complete. So I've got this nice, just a small repeating pattern that's a nice dark pattern in my background. That way it kind of fades to the back a little bit. Now I've got my sort of a copper pearlescent card, and again, I cut this to 6x6 and then trimmed off those triangular corners in the same way that I trimmed them off from my card base, but I don't want any of that white to show, so that's why I started with a 6x6. And I did remember to ink this because I did glue down these copper pearlescent specialty paper to a white card base. I want to get rid of all of that white so that it doesn't detract from everything else. And same with the pattern papers that I cut down as well. Just inking all of that up. And I'm using the Graphic 45 hybrid ink pad. This one is classic black. And it works great for this paper pad because there is a lot of black that is built into the design as well. And with these triangular pieces here, now the way that you want to assemble this is the 3 points of the triangle. There should be one angle that you can find that actually has those 3 points touching the 3 edges of your card. So the bottom edge, the top edge, and the side edge. So what I did was just continue to rotate, nudge it around until I found the angle where the 3 points of the triangle actually touch all 3 edges, the top, the side, and the bottom. Now, because one of these triangular pieces is going to cross over the other one, I do want to try to give it a nice level surface to sit on. And so that's why I just traced out this extra bit of cardstock in black. And I'm going to adhere that down to the top triangle here. That way it kind of matches, not exactly, but closely matches the thickness of the triangle piece that's underneath. And that gives it a nice flat edge. So I've got some other elements to play with here. So this is a die cut that I have that is just a nice circle happy birthday die. It has separate dies to cut out the little hearts that separate the 2 words and the little circle in the center as well. And I've inked that up with the black ink also. And so with all of these elements, now the fun part is composing everything. And part of what I tried to do is give myself a lot of different elements to work from, but that also comes with being a little bit disciplined and knowing like when it's too much and when to edit. And so even though I did have that big balloon that I really liked, I ended up just leaving it off of the front. And for some of these elements, the other thing that I would also recommend is you can always, if you want, especially when you're fussy cutting out of just the paper, if you want the element to be a little bit stronger and a little bit more substantial, you can always just trace it out of and cut it again out of just some black cardstock or white cardstock, just depending on what is going to be the least noticeable. And then that helps to give it some added strength. So that's always an option as well. And for this clock, so I'm doing the same thing where I just want to layer on some additional cardstock underneath just to give it a nice level surface to glue on top of. And as you saw, I did kind of curl the tops of that clock a little bit just to give it a little bit more dimension, and I applied some 3D glue gel underneath there. Now, I for the sake of being able to kind of compose all of this and not have to wait for my 3D glue gel to dry. I'm using a hot glue gun in some cases because it gives you a really nice strong hold, and especially with the Rosette, which has a lot of nooks and crannies because it's got all of the mountain and valley folds. The glue gun is really great for that because it'll just sink where it needs to sink, and it'll stick, and that way it gives you a nice strong hold. And this little strip, I did fussy cut out of a pattern paper, and it actually reads something more like, something wicked this way comes. The wicked, you can't read it in full, and so what I decided to do was just intentionally cover the wicked. So it just says something this way comes. And my thought was, being a birthday card, I could write on the inside of the card, sending you, happy, wishes, or hoping that you get all of your wishes this birthday, something to that effect. So I thought that would be a fun little element to add. And then with my paper straws, I kind of like having them crisscrossed. And so what I'm doing when I do attach this to my card is I'm making sure that the seam, the ends, are face down so that they are not visible. But that's where if you ink your paper straw and your rosette, that would also help to hide the seam and sort of that white edge. So here is a final close-up look of my crossover pointy card. Look at all of that dimension. So this is definitely not an easy mailer. This is one that you would create a little box for, maybe send it along with a gift so that it's also in another box besides. And that way it's nice and protected, and all of that dimension doesn't go flat on you. And as well, this definitely exceeds the thickness of regular shipping. So for sure this will cost extra to ship, but it's beautifully displayed. As you can see, it stands really well because of the 3 points at the bottom, and it's just a lot of fun to create. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing that notification bell. Thanks so much. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.